Let's face it, tech heads like us are numbers people, and when we want to know whether a gadget is worth buying, the first place we're going to look is the spec sheet. But times change, and some of the numbers we absolutely obsessed over long ago really don't matter much anymore today. So let's take a look at 3 specs that you just should not devote any mental power to worrying about. Let's start with a motherboard spec that just doesn't matter anymore, the front side bus. No, this is not a VIP section of the Loser Cruiser. It's a connection built into the motherboard that used to link the CPU and a chip called the North Bridge, which in turn connected to your system's RAM. The front side bus had its own clock speed. That was once an important spec to look for when buying a motherboard, especially as the FSB affected your CPU's clock speed through the use of a multiplier. So on top of having to match a CPU with a motherboard socket and chipset, you also had to make sure your motherboard's BIOS could run the FSB and multiplier at compatible settings for your CPU. For example, if the FSB ran at 66 MHz and your CPU was rated at 300 MHz, then it would need a multiplier of 4.5. But perhaps an even bigger deal that ultimately led to the FSB's demise was how it interacted with memory. Oftentimes, your RAM would run at the same speed as the FSB, which almost sounds nice. And at first, it wasn't a big issue since the FSB paradigm dated back to early Pentium chips from the mid to late 90s. But as time went on and CPUs got faster, data couldn't get from memory to the CPU quickly enough due to the slow FSB, meaning CPUs were often waiting around to get data from memory, creating a huge bottleneck. But these days, the memory controller has been moved onto the CPU itself with a direct connection between the CPU and RAM. So the FSB and North Bridge are mostly relics of the past you no longer need to worry about. Let's move on to a spec that is still around, but it's just something we don't have to care about anymore. Right after we thank FreshBooks, the invoicing and accounting solution that's built for owners and their clients. FreshBooks users save a ton of time and money. We're talking 11 hours a week that they used to spend sorting through invoices, and keeping track of financials. Plus, 94% of FreshBooks users say it's super easy to get up and running, and with award-winning support, you're never alone. Switch to FreshBooks today and join over 24 million people who have used it and loved it. Try FreshBooks for free for 30 days, no credit card required, by going to freshbooks.com/techquickie to get started. Okay, here's a still current spec that you should not stress over: the signal-to-noise ratio for computer audio. Back in the day, the sound integrated into motherboards was famously terrible. Not only was the quality poor, but it was very common to hear hissing and static sounds in the background, even when you didn't have anything playing, which might be good for falling asleep, but for some of us it could be very annoying. This was due to electrical interference inside the PC and poor electrical shielding. So one way that frustrated users typically got around this was to install a dedicated sound card. Although sound cards were not a perfect solution, they typically offered higher quality components and better electrical isolation, which is where the signal-to-noise specification came in. Higher SNR usually meant less static coming through your speakers. Now, having a high SNR is still important, but these days you don't have to worry about it too much because onboard sound has significantly improved thanks to higher quality amplifiers and capacitors, along with improved isolation from the rest of the motherboard. And you don't even need an ultra premium motherboard to find these features. Most mid-range boards should give you clean sound, and any decent modern sound card certainly should as well. So although both sound cards and motherboards will still list SNR on their spec sheet, it's not something that you should get too hung up on unless you're really going for something bargain basement. Let's wrap up with a graphics card spec that's a real blast from the past: the number of colors your GPU displays. Those of you with long memories who remember when Windows 95 ruled the roost might also recall that your computer may have been set to show just 256 colors out of the box. Early graphics adapters could only support a limited number of colors due to memory limitations. The number 256 comes from the fact that 8 bits were used to express each color, and 2 to the power of 8 gives you 256 total colors. This was fine for the simple graphics we were used to on computers up through the mid-1990s, but it didn't look quite right for photographs. Although it was certainly improvement on really old video adapters that could only do 16 colors. Woof! But these days, you don't have to worry about how many colors your GPU can push to your monitor. Even the cheapest integrated graphics will do 24-bit colors, which is over 16 million colors. But 256 color mode actually still finds use in some applications like remote desktop software, where bandwidth savings are often prioritized over photorealism. And you know what? That might even be more than enough if you only use your computer for creating modern art. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, hit like, hit subscribe, and hit us up in the comment section with your suggestions for topics that we should cover in the future. We appreciate it.